welcome to Own It Magazine and Publishing. My name is Marissa Bloedoorn. I am your host. I am so excited to have with me today a holistic cardiology nurse, an award winning Teresa Palmer. She is the author of Heal Your Heart from Within, and she is taking center stage and Own It with me today. And we are focusing this session on self healing. And she is amazing, and I can't wait for her to just dive on in. And so, without further ado, Teresa Palmer.
Thank you so much for having me today. It's
I'm
a pleasure.
excited to be here. Yes, to say hello to our audience and share a little bit about what's going on in your heart today.
What's going on in my heart today? I thought we'd start off with something that's a little bit controversial, and it's also a lot misunderstood. And that's the topic of self healing. And self healing is really about bringing your body back into balance because illness and disease occur or develop when the body is out of balance. And unless it's something acute, and we're not talking about anything acute, we're not talking about somebody they're having trauma, having an acute illness like pneumonia or something like that. We're talking about the more chronic illness and diseases that happen over a period of time. And also those diseases that we take a part, and I know people are going to kind of maybe stand back from that one, but we do have accountability and we do take a part in how we are open to these illnesses and diseases. And that's about 70% really of our health is chronic diseases. The other 30% are things that just happen that we have no control over. Like you're walking down the street and a tree falls and hits you on the head. You have absolutely no control. There's nothing you could have done to change that. It is what it is. But for the majority of the things, we play a role in what happens to us.
Mm,
And
mm.
that's all part of self healing because we play a role in it. And we could also change that by our behaviors and things that we do internally within ourselves and also externally, things
Yeah,
outside of ourselves.
our decisions, right? Our
Right.
decision. And we can say, we can blame, initially, our family environment, right? Because as kids, we don't know no better. We're just doing what mommy and daddy say to do as far as eating, as far as things that we do. But at a certain point, we have to shift and say, as we grow and we learn and we become independent and we're grown, so to speak, it's now our responsibility to take ownership of our decision making. And that's where I think that you're saying that it's controversial because we don't want to own that, right? We don't want to own that. It's easier for us to say it's the food, the way that the food is made. It's easier for us to say different things, but to take that ownership, and that's what Own It is all about. It's not a cute little, hey, it's your life, own it. No, I really mean serious business, because we need to take accountability for our ideology. And I think that that's a part of where you're going too, is our perspective, how we see things, and what the choices that we make based on that. And so dive into that self healing. What is the beginning process? What is the awakening of that?
Uh, okay, why don't we go through a little bit about how a disease or an illness happens? And I'm talking about things, let's take an example like diabetes. I used to always tell my patients, you didn't wake up one morning and become diabetic. It's a process. It's something that could take years. It could take 6 months, 2 months, it could take 10 years. But a lot of illness and disease is because of stress. And we may not always realize that we're under stress, but when we're under stress, our body becomes stressed. And by that, I mean we start to put our body out of balance. So if you start to take something like diabetes, our body knows what to do. You know, our heart pumps blood. Our heart is our most important organ for many reasons, one of which is that it sustains life. So our heart pumps blood, nutrients, oxygen, all the chemical reactions, the electrical, vibrational, everything happens through the heart. And the cells, the organs, the muscles, the fibers, our nervous system, everything responds to this and it works in harmony. So when you have a body that's in balance, all the cells, all the organs, blood is being distributed exactly where it should be, the amount of oxygen, the amount of any other sodium, potassium, all those things are being regulated. So what happens is when we're under stress, we start to throw that out of balance. Or if
Mm.
we're worried about something, we begin that process of throwing things out of balance. So take something like diabetes. What happens is when we're under stress, or we're worrying about something, or we have anxiety, or we're thinking in terms that aren't life enhancing. We're thinking things like, things never work out for me. Why do I even try to do this? Because it never works out. So once that process starts to happen, it starts to affect the physical body. Your body starts to start excreting these stress hormones, adrenaline and epinephrine, and cortisol. And when this starts to happen, you're now starting the process of leading to illness and disease. So if it's something short term, say you're worried about a job interview, and that job interview comes and you do fine, okay, you stop worrying about it, the body goes back into balance. But say it's something like finances, that you're worried about your ability to sustain finances, retirement, um, house payments, anything like that. That's more of a chronic worry and a chronic stress. Even though we may not see it as a stressor, it is. So now your body starts to secrete cortisol. When your body starts to secrete cortisol, right now, what happens is your body starts to look like it's under a physical threat. So a message gets sent to the brain, and that message is the body is having a threat. There's a risk here, and now we have to start doing certain things to protect the body. One of the first things it does is it starts to shunt blood away from major organs. So it starts to shunt blood away from the stomach so that digestion is slowed, the kidneys, so that you don't have to go to the bathroom in the middle of a crisis. You're getting set to run, to leave, actually to run for your life. And the body doesn't know, the brain doesn't know the difference between a perceived threat and a real threat. So the
Wow.
body responds in a way to protect the body. With the cortisol, with the adrenaline, with the norepinephrine, your blood pressure raises. You start to breathe more shallow. Okay, you're not taking in as deep breaths. Um, I already said your digestion is slowed. Your kidneys aren't functioning as well as they should. You're also holding on to the energy, which is blood sugar. So that's quick energy. Sugar is quick energy. So now your body's holding on to sugar. Your body's also holding on to fat because your body doesn't know that at any time you could go to the refrigerator and get a meal. The body thinks that it's running for
Wow.
its life, that it's in survival. So
Wow.
now you're starting to raise your blood sugar. Your blood sugar is staying raised because of this perceived threat. The longer it goes on, the more your blood sugar stays raised, the more you hold on to fat. So now you're not able to really lose weight, which now causes more anxiety because now you see yourself either not losing weight if you're trying to, or gaining weight if you're not on a diet. And that becomes another stressor, another source of anxiety, another source of worry. Your blood pressure gets raised because you want to make sure that there's enough blood going to all the extremities. You constrict that blood from the organs because you want to send the blood out to the extremities so that you could fight, you could run, and the brain that you could think quickly about how to survive. So all these things are going on. And if they go on for a period of months and years, now you've got higher blood pressure. You're not digesting food as properly, and your blood sugar is elevated, and you're holding on to fat. And that sets the stage for diabetes because now your pancreas has to work harder. So as
Mm.
your pancreas works harder, if it goes on for a period of years, you're starting to burn out the pancreas. You really are. It's not functioning optimally. So now your blood pressure is staying elevated. You're trying to produce more insulin. You're not digesting food as properly. And the fat cells are interfering now with the ability of the insulin that you have in your body to do its job. And lo and behold, you're starting to develop diabetes. We don't always realize that, but how do you turn that around? The way you turn that around is that you start recognizing your stress and you start managing your stress. And as you manage your stress, your body doesn't hold on to as much glucose. You stop sending out the hormones of epinephrine, the stress hormones. Your brain begins to function better because now you're able to access the higher intelligence of your brain, not just this reptilian part of the brain that says fight, flight, or freeze. And you're starting to turn around to have your body more in balance. So once your heart now and your brain can do its job, working together to get the body back in balance, to get your food digesting more, to start getting rid of some of those fat cells, to start burning energy instead of holding on to the sugar, which is quick energy, you're turning diabetes around. So that's really what self healing is. The same thing with inflammation. If your gut is producing too much inflammation, that inflammation, if it goes into the arteries of the heart, it could cause, if you have high cholesterol, it can cause a piece of that cholesterol to break off to block the artery and cause a heart attack. So
Mm.
again, if you could reduce your inflammation in your body, in your joints, and in your coronary arteries, again, you're self healing because you're turning the situation around. So that's really what self healing is. And it often gets a bad rap. I know when I talk to my patients about self healing, some of them think it's like voodoo. That, all of a sudden it's like, boom, this magic thing that an outside force that comes in, like somebody put a spell on them, and all of a sudden you're releasing that spell and you're healing somebody. That's not what it is. That's
No.
not what it is. It's really more about turning around what's happening inside your body and putting it back in balance. So I hope that makes sense to everybody.
Yeah, it does make sense. And I'm glad you said you talked about the self healing process because most of this self healing process is more of spiritual, emotional. But what people are really disconnecting is the fact that, you're disconnecting yourself from your own body. And one thing I appreciate about how I'm wired mentally is that I do an eval. So I'm very analytical. I assess a lot. And the reason why is I'm staying in tune, right? So if I do this with my hands, I can tell, like, okay, have I been eating right or not? Because you feel the swelling, right? You feel that swelling. You can tell if you had a lot of salt in your system by how are you feeling in the mornings. And I remember doing this back in my 30s. It's like I feel like swollen. You can feel in your hands when you've had too much sodium in your body, and your body is giving you warning signs. But if you are not conscious of that, you won't get to see or detect any of these things that you just spoke about happening to you before they get to an acute level, right? Wait until we're at the doctors, and then but staying so in tune with your body, and you can do this by just monitoring, check in, like how are you feeling after you ate something.
Right.
If I feel like I'm too full, I'll say, man, like I shouldn't have, I should have stopped at blah 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 amount. And it's fine we do that sometimes if we're in social environments and everything's coming around and everything looks good, that's fine. But you have to have that level of self-regulation that's required to say, hey, this is a good time. And another thing that happens too, when you are becoming conscious of, what's going on with your body and things like that, your family and friends may have a tendency to say, come on, just have that. You can have one more. It's not going to hurt you to do that. You have to push back. And it's not going to feel good all the time when you're changing your mindset about things, when you're changing your perspective about things. There is a system out there, an external system that is going to try to keep you in that same mode that you've been going in. Either they don't get it or they do get it and don't care. They just want you to stay with the in crowd. And you're going to have to love yourself enough to, one, become very conscious of your body, and being in tune with your body and recognizing when your body is speaking to you, and then two, being able to push back the resistance of your change in behavior, because there is going to be a resistance to that in your circle. I want to talk a little bit more about what you spoke in regards to our choices, because own it, we always start at the beginning of the year, is your mindset, having your mindset right. So in order for your year to go right, our perspective is this: you got to get your mind in alignment with what your goals are, and you have to have a mindset of that. When you spoke about going under stress and seeing things, because we all go through stress, but it's how do we see or perceive the stress.
Right.
And I always say, do a SWOT analysis. When you see a threat, what are your strengths in that threat? What are your weaknesses in that threat? What's the opportunity of this stress, or what's the threat of the stress? And when we are looking at strengths and opportunities, we're looking at the positive side of the occurrence, or what you're getting ready to experience. Um, when we look at the weak or threat, it doesn't necessarily have to be that they're negative. We can look at them like, okay, this is an area in which I need to develop and make it stronger, or this is an area where I need to get outside resources or support systems to help me become strong in this weak area. But it's important for you to recognize where your weak area is, or where your infiltration area is. Where is the area of infiltration of something that you don't want, something that's less desired? And how can you turn that threat into an opportunity of growth and development? So if a threat is you're at a party and there's cake, there's goodies, and there's sweets around, and you're dealing with coming out of being diabetic, right? What do? Make sure that you have opposing foods, right? Foods that are, if you got to bring your own stuff with you, bring your own stuff with you. If you have to learn how to order from the menu a different way, love yourself enough to develop that skill set, to be able to know what foods on that menu, if any, are appropriate for you. And so I want to talk about, how do they begin, healing your heart from within? How do they begin to change their mindset? What are some of the things that they could do to change their mindset? Because you said something really, really important, is that when we have the wrong mindset or perspective, we actually aid in our body shutting down from its proper functionality. So talk to the viewers in regards to, how do they begin to shift this ideology that they have, or their perspective?
Yeah, it's all about perception, how you perceive things. Somebody has a gun to your head, or somebody breaks in into your house. That's a real threat. That's a real threat, and that's something that you have to deal with. Most of our threats are what we perceive. We kind of build these things in our mind. And a lot of times we also say to ourselves, I have a lot of patients that say to me, well, if I weren't under so much stress, or if this weren't happening, I wouldn't eat. Well, that's not really true, because what you're doing is you're sending the message to your brain that it's okay to be like that, and you're not processing your feelings. So, one of the things that with Heal Your Heart from Within. And really, part of heart health is that the heart has the ability to hold and process emotions, to really sit with them. What happens is we have a tendency to really just think with our brain and not use our heart. And this is going to sound strange to some people, but the heart actually has a brain. The heart has the same neuroreceptors. In fact, it has more than the brain does. So if you could take in an emotion, okay, like an emotion of, let's say, what's a good one? Pick an emotion, an emotion that would bother you. Say something like, I'm going to a party and I'm going to eat a lot of junk because I feel self-conscious and anxious around people. I'm going to be meeting new people and that scares me. Now, if you send that message straight to your brain without processing it in your brain is going to get the message that it's okay to do what you want and you're going to lose control. So when you get to that party, you're going to see all this food, all this junk, whatever. And you're going to just start to go at it because the brain is going to tell you it's okay. You're not taking the responsibility because this fight or flight sets in. The same thing like somebody's holding a gun to your head. It's the same mechanism. And it says, whew, I don't have to take responsibility for this. I could eat because I'm under this pressure. Now, if before you go to the party or on a daily basis, if you check in with your heart and you hold those emotions in your heart, okay, I'm going to be in this situation where I'm going to be meeting new people. I really don't like to meet new people because I get nervous. Maybe I'm a little self-conscious. If you sit with that emotion and process it through your heart, it goes to the higher intelligence of your brain. There's two parts of your brain, the frontal cortex and the amygdala, which is like more the reptile brain. So once you start to process the emotions and hold them, even if you can't come up with a solution, you're holding that in your heart. Your heart is saying, okay, wait a second, let's not just rush into fight or flight. Let's see what we could do about this emotion. There may not be an answer right away. And one of my mentors, Rick Jarrow, I remember him saying, sometimes you just have to sit in the oven until you're fully baked. Sometimes you have to take the heat. You may just have to take the heat going to this party because there may not be a quick solution of how could I feel more comfortable around strangers. That may be a process that takes you a while. It may be a process that you even have to work out with professional help. Who knows? But if you could sit with it in your heart, you access the higher part of your brain, which says, listen, you could go there. It doesn't mean you have to talk to everybody. It's okay to feel uncomfortable.
Right.
It's okay to not eat or bring your own food or, to simply say, I'm not at the party to eat. I'm at the party to try. And little by little, I'll try to socialize. Maybe I'll talk to one new person. Maybe I'll just say hi to somebody and not have a further conversation. But now you're taking that responsibility for your actions. And that's what's so crucial. And I call the process living and thinking from your heart. That we tend to only look at our heart and give it attention when something goes wrong or is perceived to be wrong. We don't look to our heart for all that it could do to us. And one thing it could do for us is turn off the stress hormones, which allows us to access the frontal cortex, which is our decision making and which is more rational. It's the higher human part of the brain.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And you are saying take ownership, stay in the oven till you're fully baked. We are at the close of our first session. I'm excited there because there's so much more that we're going to dive into. And so I just want to give you this opportunity to give your closing remarks. The book is Heal Your Heart from Within. And she is an award winning holistic Cardiology Nurse, and she is one of our contributing writers with Own It magazine. So you can look forward to seeing her articles in the magazine every month. If you're interested in subscribing, just drop your email to us at tcsconsultantllc.com, and we will make sure that you are added to our subscribers list. Teresa, your closing remarks.
Closing remarks, what I could tell people is, every day just put your hand over your heart, acknowledge your heart, actually feel the pulsation of your heartbeat, and know that the heart is working for you. Your heart is your greatest superpower. It's the greatest power that we have. And once we could tap into that power, we could do things that are unimaginable, and we can control our thoughts, our perceptions, our actions. We could actually be more in control not only of our health and well-being, but of our life, and
It's your
take
life.
responsibility and own it, because
Yeah.
we're here to do.
Yeah, this is your life. Own it. We love you so very much. We're believing that our session blessed you. We're looking forward to coming back and having more. So stay tuned. You got to watch the next session. We're out. Have a great week.
Thank you so much. To be continued.